Good morning. Well, actually, it's almost my afternoon. Needless to say, I am here today because I realized it's been almost a daggone week since my last post, and that was not intentional. There's been a lot going on, but I'm just really excited because God is still doing exactly what He said He would do, and He's opening up doors that I have not been expecting. So I'm excited about that, but I wanted to get on real quick to talk about boundaries. I think that it's so important that we learn in our journeys of healing forward and in our journeys of becoming all that God has called us to become, and all that He sees us as. It's important that we learn how to implement, boundaries. So something that the Lord showed me, and I may have talked about this in previous posts, but it came up again, and so I'm like, I really just want to do a video on it again. And so there's 3 steps and 3 things that God has given me, 3 ways to implement these boundaries, right? The first step in it is to establish them. To establish means to create. It means to set a foundation, to be innovative and create these boundaries. How do we create boundaries? How do we establish boundaries? We do so by reflecting on where we are, reflecting on where we're trying to go, and assessing. In order to establish, you have to assess what's going on within you, what's going on around you, and what's going to happen for you, right? Once you establish those boundaries, the next step is going to be to implement them. And so with the word implementation, God revealed to me, when you're implementing something, that means you're putting it into practice, you're putting it into work, you're putting it into your day-to-day. And so you assess through establishing, then you implement by doing, and the final thing for boundaries, being able to put them into your life, is going to be enforcing them. This, I feel like, is the hardest part, and I had to do this recently. Enforcing your boundaries, meaning you hold people accountable to the boundaries that you establish and implemented. Now that can be difficult because it's like, well, if I am having to enforce, that means I'm having to have conversations. If I'm having to enforce, that means I'm having to step outside of my emotions and allow sobriety to be what speaks. And so I encourage you all to establish them boundaries, assess every area in your life that's in need of a facelift, and establish them. They can change over time, right? There's levels to it. So you establish them, you implement them, you put them into practice, you put them into work, and then you enforce them. And by enforcing, it also means that if there is anything or anyone that may cross them, you have the right to say, no more access. You can love someone and forgive them and not give them access. That's okay. And so in this journey, as we're healing forward, in this journey, as we are repairing the family system, in this journey, as we are being all that God has really destined us to be, we have to make sure that we have boundaries. The Lord has boundaries, okay? In the beginning, in the beginning of the word, He told Adam and Eve not to eat of the fruit, told Adam not to eat of the fruit of good and evil. That was a boundary. And guess what? Once He said it and established it, the way that He worked it, He implemented it by giving it to them, and then He enforced the boundary by holding them accountable, by letting them know that if you eat of this tree, you're going to die. So if God does it, then we need to do it, right? So yeah, let's work on creating those boundaries. Let's work on implementing them, and let's work on enforcing them, because that's going to help us to live and lead a balanced life, a balanced, safe, productive life. And that's what God needs and wants for you. Love you.